It's the second half of March, clearly the best time to talk about upcoming games I'm excited for. I'll be honest, with the 2024 most anticipated games list, I was kind of struggling to think of games for that one, but for this year's, I'm practically tripping over options. I had a list of almost 30 games that I could potentially talk about, and narrowing it down to just 10 was surprisingly tricky considering how good they all look. The Nintendo Switch 2 Direct is coming up pretty soon, which has the risk of rendering this list completely outdated, but at least releasing this now I could talk about games that might miss the top 10 if I made this like 2 weeks later. I can already hear my wallet crying out in agony. While making this video in March has its downsides, like how I can't talk about games like Monster Hunter Wilds and Split Fiction since, they're already out, it does mean new information on previously announced games can increase my interest level in them, and Pokemon Legends ZA is one of them. Yeah, the graphics don't look too hot, but everything else shown off has me intrigued. Being set entirely within Lumio City is an interesting idea, as while it runs the risk of getting repetitive, it does provide Game Freak with the opportunity to flesh out the city far more than X and Y ever did. What excites me even more is the changes to the combat, as while Legends Arceus made the typical Pokemon battle system a little more action-y, ZA goes even further by letting you move your Pokemon during the battle, effectively making it more like Xenoblade, which I'm all for. Technical issues are definitely a concern, especially after Scarlet and Violet, but I feel the extra time the devs were given, over 3 years since Arceus, is going to at least let the games run in a better state than previous entries. Also, Mega Evolutions are back, which is neat. They're easily the coolest of the generation-specific gimmicks, and I'm intrigued to see which Pokemon get new Megas. Do I think Legends ZA will be this earth-shattering game that will rejuvenate the franchise? Probably not, but I do think this will be a solid send-off to the Nintendo Switch. If nothing else, at least we'll get AZ as a hotel owner. Do you think he knows how room service works? I've basically given up on predicting Hollow Knight's Silksong's release. I remember when it was shown off after a long hiatus in Xbox's June 2021 presentation, the one where they said every game shown off would be released within the next 6 months. It's been almost 4 years, and we've seen nothing since. So while others may be looking around for any crumbs of information or hints from random posts, a shout out to Daily Silksong News, the absolute legend, I'm looking for other Metroidvanias to scratch that itch. And I think I found one. Mio Memories in Orbit immediately grabbed my attention with its gorgeous art style. Kind of a painterly hand-drawn look that hits the perfect balance between simplicity and detail, especially with its backgrounds. The gameplay we've seen looks a lot like Hollow Knight, with some Ori and the Blind Forest or Will-o'-the-Wisps thrown in there, and in a sci-fi setting. I don't know about you, but Hollow Knight / Ori in space sounds pretty cool to me. Movement looks very snappy and fluid, exactly what I want from a game like this. We haven't seen too much, which you're going to be hearing a lot during this video, but what we have seen has intrigued me, and I can't wait to see more. Hopefully, we won't have to wait 6+ years to play it. It's funny. Before Street Fighter 6, traditional fighting games were barely a blip on my radar, but now I've been following just about every one that's come out since. Considering we're in probably the best place the genre has been in since the 90s, I can safely say I picked a pretty great time to jump in, especially since we're getting a brand new Fatal Fury game pretty soon. SNK hasn't really gone anywhere. They've been making King of Fighters games pretty consistently, but the last Fatal Fury game was Garo Mark of the Wolves back in 1999. So you can imagine everyone's surprise when Fatal Fury City of the Wolves was announced at EVO 2022. I really like the stylized art direction SNK went for. Not to say I don't love the more realistic styles of Street Fighter 6 or Tekken 8, but this really helps City of the Wolves stand out from its peers. I especially love Mai's new outfit. It strikes the perfect balance between cool and sexy, and everyone else looks pretty sick too. I've never played an SNK fighter, so I have no idea what this one does differently from previous entries, but it does look really fun. Really, the main reason this is here is just because of how much I've gotten into recent fighting games and how fun and stylish this looks. Is that a shallow reason for putting City of the Wolves at number 8? Probably, but I don't care. Also, Ken and Chun-Li are coming as DLC later in the year, which is awesome, since Terry and Mai were both in Street Fighter 6. Now, if we could get a proper Capcom vs SNK 3, then we'd be in business. Can I get super excited about a game if we've only had one trailer that didn't show much? If that game's a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, you bet your ass I can. Ghost of Tsushima was an awesome send-off to the PS4, so a sequel was inevitable in my opinion, and sure enough, we're getting one later this year. Ghost of Yotei, and if it's even half as good as the first game, we're gonna have another winner on our hands. Like I said, we don't know much about this one, but what we do know is intriguing. I wasn't expecting a 300-year time jump, resulting in a completely different protagonist, Atsu, but this does open the door to tell a completely new story, while making everything feel fresh with this new setting of Mount Yotei at the beginning of Japan's Edo period. The visual style looks just as stunning as its predecessor, and holy cow, look at the grass! I already thought Tsushima had fantastic looking grass, but Yotei's might look even better. I realize these are very surface level observations, and for the record, the lack of a good look at the gameplay is why this isn't any higher, but I have complete faith that Sucker Punch can deliver another stellar title in their near flawless catalog. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets delayed into 2026. I'm hoping it doesn't, but as long as Sucker Punch gets to make the game as good as they can, I won't complain. It will absolutely be worth the wait. When you think of a traditional turn-based RPG, what visual comes to your mind? Odds are you either think of pixel art or a stylized anime look. Not saying that all turn-based RPGs look like those, but that is probably what you'll see if you look up RPG in Google Images. So when Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was announced, I was completely caught off guard. Here's a game that seems to look like any other Western AAA game, but then it has this turn-based combat system, like a Persona or an old-school Final Fantasy game. But if that was all that was exciting about Clair Obscur, it wouldn't be on the list. And thankfully, there's a whole lot more to look forward to. The setting is really cool. It's a dark fantasy take on the Belle Epoque, I don't know how you say that, a period in French history between the Franco-Prussian War and World War I, where every year, a being called the Paintress cuts down the world's population by painting a number, after which everyone of that age gets deleted from existence. So a team of explorers goes out to stop her. The premise is very intriguing, but it's the combat that really got me interested. Like I said, it's a turn-based RPG, but it has timed hits, kind of like a Mario RPG, which I greatly prefer over just choosing something from a menu and watching my character perform the action with no player input. Also like the Mario and Luigi games, you can actually dodge or counter enemy attacks, another feature I really wish more RPGs had. And that's not even getting into the stunning visual design, or the stellar voice cast, or the fact that this is Studio Sandfall Interactive's first game. I really hope this succeeds and pushes the genre forward like Persona 5 did nearly a decade ago. Now, if only I knew what a Clair Obscur was. I can't believe it's been 9 years since Doom 2016 came out. I remember when everyone was making fun of its super generic box art and preparing themselves for another disappointing Doom game, but no, it turned out to be a really kick-ass return to form. I didn't play that one, but I did play the sequel, Doom Eternal, which is one of the best shooters I've ever played. So when a third entry was announced, The Dark Ages, you bet I was pumped to see it. The setting of medieval times is kind of a strange choice, but since it lets Doom Guy use a shield and wear a badass fur cape, I'm not complaining. Said shield even comes with chainsaw blades, can block projectiles, and it can come back to you after you throw it. Traditional guns obviously don't exist in the Middle Ages, so how do you shoot things? Well, Doom Guy uses a device that shreds the skulls of his enemies and spits them out as projectiles. I know there's other guns in this game, but come on, you don't get more hardcore and creative than that. Mobility seems to be less important than in Doom Eternal. Doom Guy is more of a tank this time, but the game looks like it's going to be designed more around the lesser abilities, so I don't really mind. I mean, how can I, when they added giant mechs where you can fight Titan-sized demons? id Software and Doom are basically carrying Bethesda right now, and if they just keep up what they're doing while spicing things up like this, then I don't see the ripping and tearing stopping anytime soon. It's only a flesh wound. It feels so strange to be excited for anything Konami is doing. It wasn't that long ago that they were focusing on pachinko machines and releasing dumpster fires like Metal Gear Survive and Contra Rogue Core. But Konami has been working to regain their lost goodwill, what with all the collections they've been putting out, including the recent Suikoden 1 and 2 remaster, which is great because now I don't have to spend $2,000 just to play them, and letting Bloober Team make a stellar remake of Silent Hill 2. So when they announced a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater at a State of Play in 2023, it wasn't immediately met with derision and scorn from everyone on Earth. There was still skepticism about Konami's ability to remake one of their most beloved games without Hideo Kojima, but the more they showed, the more that skepticism started to fade. Snake Eater is one of my favorite games of all time, with maybe my favorite video game story, so I was very relieved when they said the story would be virtually untouched, complete with the same voice lines from the original. Visually, the remake is incredible, really making the jungle setting come to life, especially with how the light shines through the leaves and hits the ground. Like, look at this. The gameplay seems mostly the same, but now there are two control options, one with the original control scheme and one more closely resembling modern action games. I really appreciate that they decided to make both, letting returning players stick to the controls they know inside and out, while also letting new players use the scheme they're more used to. There's even an option to turn on the piss yellow filter from the original, which sounds completely unnecessary, but the fact that it's here shows how much the devs want to preserve the spirit of the original to me. The more I see of Delta, the more confident I am that it will actually live up to expectations. Please don't screw it up, Konami! Also, re-release Metal Gear Rising on all current platforms, please and thank you. So we're getting a brand new Mario Kart this year, but as of now, we know almost nothing about it. We don't even have a title, so it doesn't feel right talking about it at the moment. I can talk about Sonic Racing Cross Worlds though. I actually got to play this game during the closed beta test, and while it still needs some work, consider me excited and impressed. Mechanically, it's quite similar to the previous Sonic Kart Racers, where all of your favorite Sonic characters and Zaz race around a variety of Sonic and Sega-themed race tracks, borrowing the excellent vehicle switching mechanics from Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. The new gimmick this time is that for the second lap, you enter this giant ring and go to a completely different location. From Dinosaur Jungle, from Sonic and the Secret Rings, to Lava Cave from Galaxy Force, of all things. The transition is seamless, at least on PS5, and the tracks I played, which amounts to about a fourth of the total track count, have been really fun. The only complaint I have right now is that the items are ridiculously unbalanced. I've had multiple races where I've gone from 1st to 9th within the span of 10 seconds on the last stretch, and that's really annoying. But I have faith Sega will fix this to the best of their ability, which still feels weird to say even after Sonic's numerous wins recently. I gotta say, the new Mario Kart's gonna have to try really hard to be as fresh and interesting as Cross Worlds is. Sonic is truly back, and it feels so good to say that. Now he just has to stay back. After 8 years, Metroid Prime 4 is finally coming out. We've been waiting the entire Switch lifespan for any news, and after development restarted at the beginning of 2019, it felt like one of those long-anticipated games that would never come out, like Half-Life 3 or Beyond Good and Evil 2, despite very infrequent reminders from Nintendo that it still existed. Then, at the end of the June 2024 Nintendo Direct, we finally got our big re-reveal of Metroid Prime 4, now subtitled Beyond, with actual gameplay and a release window of 2025. The gameplay we have looks, well, like more Metroid Prime, which is great, and they're clearly saving whatever makes this entry stand out for later, maybe at the Switch 2 Direct. But if the footage we've seen is from the Switch 1, this is really damn impressive. I've seen people saying this looks like a PS4 or even a PS5 game, and while I wouldn't go that far, it does look quite amazing for an 8-year-old system. Also, Psylux from Metroid Prime Hunters is here, following up on his cameos in Corruption and Federation Force, where it looks like he'll be the big villain this time. Metroid is in the best place it's been in since the 2000s, with Metroid Dread becoming the best-selling game in the series in only a few months, and I hope Beyond will push Metroid to even higher heights. Just don't give us another Chozo Artifact-style endgame fetch quest. There's only so many of those I can take. I mean, were you expecting anything else? To say that Grand Theft Auto 6 is the most hyped up game of the generation would be an understatement. When your previous game sold over 200 million copies and is still being played by millions around the world 12 years after it came out, you better believe the next entry is going to generate a ton of buzz. The trailer got over 100 million views in 2 days, and while it didn't show too awful much, what we were shown looks stunning. I know it's been over a decade since GTA 5, but the graphical upgrade is unbelievable. The lighting during the sunset segments in particular looks incredible, and the human models put just about every other game in existence to shame. Making the protagonists, Lucia and Jason, a Bonnie and Clyde style duo, is an interesting change of pace. That's sure to make the story stand out from the rest. But I play GTA for the wacky weirdness, and thankfully GTA 6 seems to have that in spades. Vice City is back and has been expanded into the state of Florida, I mean Leonida, which means swamps, crazy rednecks, and alligators. Any game that has alligators in it is automatically twice as good as it would be without them. This game is so huge that other companies seem to actually be scared to announce release dates for their games for fear that GTA 6 will completely crush them, and I can't blame them. This is going to be the biggest video game launch of all time. No contest. So I hope Rockstar can not only deliver on the game's quality, but also deliver enough copies so that launch day won't be a complete nightmare. All it needs is an achievement for being eaten by an alligator, and it will be Game of the Year by default. And those are my most anticipated games for the rest of 2025. Yeah, sorry for this being released in March. I wanted to point out the best games of 2023 and 2024 lists out first. So games like Split Fiction and Monster Hunter Wilds already came out, and I couldn't talk about them. This is the last of my heavily scripted countdown videos I have planned, and I am feeling kind of burnt out after a whole straight month and a half of focusing on these, but I will be doing more of them in the future before the inevitable best games of 2025 video. I'll see you with the Switch 2 Direct, I guess. We've got less than 2 weeks to go, and hopefully it'll be awesome. Bye!